Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Kris. I am woman, hear me roar. Grr. Alright, that was terrible. Let's not ever do that again. See me right there, I click that thumbs up button. If you could do that for me, that helps out tremendously. You should do that because look. Oh, snip snap. You don't even know where I am, do you? You don't even know where I'm going to go. Look at me. I'm moving my head around and you can't even tell. Here I am. Oh, there I go. I'm moving. Okay, I'm back over here. I'm just so happy with this computer. Anyways, subscribe to the channel if you want me to not do that again. Or subscribe if you want me to do it again. Mind games. And you can donate to the channel through the thanks button. If you do, you can request a video. Your name will be sponsored in the title. This was a request. And I appreciate that, but I just thank the request and I get on with the video. No disrespect, but I appreciate the request. Anyways, let's get into this is a second wave, so they're about to get into the second wave of the battle. Let's go. See what happens. I played around too long. Now let's go.
Ottoman archers loosed their arrows when the central Timurid formation came into range. Moments later, Timur's cavalry crashed into the Ottoman left. In the center, the momentum of the charge pushed back the Azep infantry, inflicting severe casualties. Bayezid ordered the archers to focus all of their support on the Azep sector by lobbing arrows into the enemy line. The Sultan sent in the Janissaries to stabilize the center. Due to the ferocity of the Timurid charge, he had no choice but to commit his best infantry earlier than planned. Meanwhile, on the right, the Anatolians under Timurtas held their formation, but the more experienced Persian infantry drove them back. The Serbian heavy cavalry, meanwhile, countercharged the elite contingent of Middle Eastern and Anatolian formations. Serbian swords and lances tore through their formation, penetrating armor and dismounting riders. In the center, while the Azeps continued to struggle for cohesion, the disciplined Janissaries held strong, inflicting heavy losses on the Timurids. Fearing that his center could break, Timur responded by reinforcing the attack. Back on the right, by now the Serbian heavy cavalry pushed down the gentle hill, driving the enemy back across the plain. Unsupported, they risked being dangerously separated from the rest of the Ottoman line. Bayezid recognized the advance on the right and sent an urgent message to Stefan to restrain his men from advancing any further and pull back. In the center, the unrelenting Janissaries had worn down the Timurids and forced them back. Timur and his captains made sure to control the fighting withdrawal so it didn't turn into a rout. The Janissaries eventually broke off and did not pursue, using the time to rest, regroup, and replace broken weapons and shields. Timur, meanwhile, seeing that his attacks on the left and center were repulsed, ordered the men back as a new wave of archers was on its way. Bayezid likely ordered the men to reform, steeling them for the next phase of the battle. Not wanting to give any respite to the enemy, Timur pulled back the line to make room for the renewed attack by his mounted archers. Now, with fresh horses and replenished quivers, the agile riders weaved their way through the retreating cavalry to begin another round of missile attacks on the Ottomans. Their main target in the center was, again, the Azep infantry, who were yet to fully regain their composure after the first wave. But this time, Ottoman archers, being on foot and on elevated ground, were able to fire more accurately than their mounted counterparts, their deadly volleys felling many Timurid riders. On the other side of the battlefield, Timur assigned 2 units from the rear to reinforce the vanguard in preparation for the next assault. In addition, he ordered his son Miran Shah to shift some of the Persian cavalry to the left wing, realizing that more force will be needed against the Serbian contingent in the next wave. Meanwhile, the swarm of activity continued in front of the Ottoman line as the steppe riders continued to chip away at Bayezid's men. While losses mounted, the Ottoman discipline held, the men valiantly withstanding the barrage of arrows. Having reshuffled his lines, Timur launched the second attack. His horse archers once again gradually swerved around and began withdrawing to the rear to mount fresh horses and restock on arrows. Bayezid could see the stronger concentration of troops in the Timurid center. Worried about the endurance of the Azep infantry, he moved all of his archers behind them to provide additional close-range support. Additional Janissary units were sent forward to strengthen the center. From the Ottoman rear, Mehmet sent reinforcements to the Ottoman right wing, anticipating that this time the Serbian contingent will be struck with much greater force. In addition, Bayezid tasked the Albanian mercenary cavalry to aid Stefan in the ridge sector.
That was smart that he, is it Mehmet? Mehmet, that he reinforced this, because I was thinking you're going to hit this harder, but then there's a part of me that was thinking you might hit it with the same force. You're going to hit here, hit these guys with the same force, and then pull back, and then just swoop in and get them from the flank. Because if they haven't learned a lesson from the first round, which is they're more powerful, better, then you gotta use that aggression against them. But they, hey, they might not commit to going back down here again to fight. So I don't know. This has been a good fight. These guys, man, I feel so bad for these guys in the middle. Because they are just getting their brains beat in. And I mean, these guys are fighting too, but it just... Oh.
Timur, wanting to further increase pressure, ordered Shah Rukh to fully commit the left wing and move 2 reserve units to bolster his numbers. Fully committing Shah Rukh at the last moment was a brilliant move, as it gave Bayezid little time to react. Timur was 1 step ahead. Meanwhile, the Ottomans received the attack on their right. In the chaos, the lines mixed. The overwhelming numbers Timur committed against the Serbian contingent were expected to pin down the heavily armored knights, while the cavalry on the right wing broke through to roll up the Ottoman line. Timur's fresh units on the far left managed to gain ground and fight their way across the ridge. But opposing them, Stefan and his veterans were unyielding, despite being outnumbered almost 2-1. After about 30 minutes of fighting, the Ottoman right had stopped the enemy once again.
Wow. You're outnumbered 2-1 and you stop them? Wow.
It was now around noon. 2 hours had passed since the fighting began. In the center, the reinforced Timurid vanguard pinned down the Ottomans, the weight of the attack mostly focused on the Azep infantry. However, this time supported by the Janissaries and concentrated volleys of the foot archers, the Azep line held. But on the Ottoman left wing, the situation looked grim. The Anatolian infantry and cavalry under Suleiman buckled against Miran Shah's men. Bayezid reacted quickly, sending forward the Tatar mercenaries. But instead of aiding the Anatolians, the Tatars switched sides and joined Timur's troops in decimating the Ottoman left. The reason for their defection...
I did not see that coming. They're about to say the reason for their defection. Oh, that's got a sting. Oh, that's brutal.
Remains unclear. As mercenaries, perhaps they thought that joining Timur would be more rewarding. Another possibility is they decided to join their nomadic brethren.
At the same time, if I'm Timur, I would seriously, if Timur wins this battle, I would seriously distrust these people, so much to the point where I would probably want to execute him, because I can't trust you to be loyal to me if you've already turned aside. Like, if I'm losing a battle, what's to stop you from turning against me? You know what I mean?
Caught between the Tatars and the Timurids in a merciless crossfire, many Ottoman troops under Suleiman's command fled, trying to get away from the slaughter. Bayezid urgently sent the armored Sipahi cavalry under his son Mehmed to prevent his left wing from disintegrating. Struck from behind, the lightly armored Kipchaks were no match against the Sipahis. Unable to wiggle away, they were cut to pieces in close quarters. Nevertheless, the Anatolians were still hard pressed. Observing the situation and the implosion of the Ottoman left wing, Timur sent forward additional units to press the advantage. However, by around 1 p.m., it seemed that Bayezid succeeded in stabilizing this sector with Mehmed's reserves.
Bayezid has done one hell of a job of keeping his forces together with less men, having traitors in his ranks, and still being able to I'm just thinking, just being able to still, and I'm not saying this negatively against Timur, but to me right now, Bayezid is controlling the battlefield because he hasn't given up anything. In fact, he's actually been pushed in, but he's never really lost that much. He's went down, but then they pull back up. He's had people against him. He's doing. I can see why, but my fear is that once I almost said elevators. Once the elephants get in, once these guys start swinging this, then it's a fight to the end. But I have been really impressed.
Despite the increasing pressure. But then, a calamity for the Ottomans. Among Timur's reinforcements, banners of Karaman, Aydin and Menteşe flapped in the wind. These were the Turkic lords, previously defeated by Bayezid during his expansion in Anatolia, some of whom fled to join Timur. The Anatolians serving the Ottomans could see the standards of their former brethren within Timurid ranks, and some of these who had been fighting under the command of Kara Timurtis Pasha on the center right also switched sides. Worse, by now, the nomadic horse archers had returned, lobbing arrows at the Ottomans as they rode past. Bayezid and Mehmet both urgently sent more troops to shore up their wings. By now, Suleiman had lost control of the Ottoman left. With his personal retinue, he fought his way out and began retreating from the field. Seeing his son's banner abandoning the front line, Bayezid sent word to the Serbian Prince Stefan on the opposite wing, requesting his presence on the left to shore up the ranks and instill discipline. Timur's elite Mamluks rushed into the gap left in the Serbian line by the departing Stefan. But the breakthrough was stopped by the veteran Serbian infantry. However, parts of the Ottoman right began to waver after enduring hours of fighting, defections, and a constant barrage of arrows. Crossing the battlefield to join the fighting on the left, Stefan sent a messenger to the Sultan, urging him to conduct a fighting retreat, or at least leave the command in the hands of his sons and withdraw to safety. But in Bayezid's mind, fleeing was unacceptable. He was not just some mediocre emir. He was the Ottoman Sultan who had doubled the territory of the empire inherited from his forefathers, undefeated in battle. Glancing once more to his left, Bayezid could see that the wing there had stabilized. Taking a deep breath and steeling himself, the Ottoman Sultan jerked his steed and led the remaining Sipahis forward. Joining the Janissaries in the center, Bayezid's presence lifted the spirits of the men. Despite the punishment they've endured for much of the afternoon, the elite Janissary infantry frenziedly hacked their way forward, driving back the Timurid center. Meanwhile, on the Ottoman left, Prince Stefan joined the fighting with a handful of lieutenants that were still alive, galvanizing the troops. Exchanging blow after blow, it was the Timurid troops who succumbed to the pressure. Seeing that the battle was turning against him, Timur sent in the last of his reserves. Some were to join Miran Shah to help finish off the Ottoman left wing. The rest were tasked with joining the attack against the Ottoman right and attempt once more to break the resolve of the Serbian contingent now that their leader, Prince Stefan, was absent. Timur also sent in many of the horse archers who had run out of arrows to join the desperate struggle. Finally, Timur unleashed his 32 elephants. Even through the din of battle, the rumbling of the ground could be felt as the Indian riders spurred on the massive animals. In one of the last orders of the day, the Sultan from Samarkand ordered the units in the center to clear a path for the Indian riders. Towering over 3 meters and weighing more than 4 tons, the shadows of the 32 massive beasts would be the last sight of many in their path. With iron determination, the Janissaries refused to yield as the giant beasts ripped right through them. Gaping holes were left in the Ottoman central formations as scores of men were trampled by the rampaging elephants. Most of the frightened animals finally collapsed in the midst of the Ottoman soldiers, succumbing to the injuries they sustained from hundreds of sword blows. A few of the elephants that survived, punching through the Ottoman line, proceeded to flee the field. Though the
I don't blame him.
carnage by Timur's elephants had stopped, the damage inflicted was irreparable. Worse, the Ottoman army was by now fully committed. With no reinforcements left to bolster the left wing and fill the shattered units in the center, they were overwhelmed across the entire battle line. Timur knew that now was the time. He ordered a general advance. Every man still able to hold a weapon was brought forward. The Ottoman line was firmly on the back foot. Within the hour, large sections of the Ottoman line broke and fled. Most of the men on the left wing routed. Exhausted, some men simply gave up and collapsed to the ground. Others found the strength to flee the carnage. Others still remained in the fight. Prince Stefan again urged the Sultan to retreat, but Bayezid refused. This time his resolve to stay and fight was perhaps to allow his sons to escape to safety. Prince Stefan formed an escort and fought his way out. The Sultan's sons, Mehmet, Suleiman and Isa, managed to retreat.
That Stefan is pretty damn impressive. That was a brutal fight too.
But Musa and Mustafa were captured during the fighting. As the Ottoman army was reduced, contingents still offering resistance were cornered and surrounded. In a dramatic last stand, Bayezid stood valiantly on the hill of Katal Tepe with his Janissaries, who fought and died next to their sultan. They repelled waves of attacks until late in the afternoon, before finally being ground down. Late in the day, a breakout was attempted. Bayezid and his select retinue tried fighting their way eastward, but to no avail. Timur had won the day. His army suffered around 15,000 dead and wounded. In stark contrast, some 30,000 Ottoman troops lay dead on the field, half of the army that fought in the Battle of Ankara.
So you got about 150,000 troops, and you lost 45,000. So almost a third, under a third of the soldiers that fought died. And this is just one afternoon. This is just like a, 2, 3, 4 hour window?
The terrifying death toll was evident across the dusty plain of Chubuk. The most disastrous, however, was the capture of the Ottoman Sultan, Bayezid. With the crushing victory at Ankara and the capture of the Ottoman Sultan, Timur was now the undisputed master of Anatolia. Pushing west, he conquered one of the last Crusader enclaves in Asia, the Knights of St. John's Fortress at Smyrna. Timur restored the Turkic Emirates, most notably Karaman, incorporating them into his sphere of influence. In a show of dominance, he sent a message to Bayezid's son and heir, Suleiman Çelebi, granting him the Balkan provinces. But Timur could not linger in Anatolia for long. He had to keep his army on the move, and he soon marched back the way he came. By now an old man in his 60s, Timur breathed his final breath in 1405 during a campaign directed at China. The empire he built did not survive for long. Ironically, the Ottoman Empire he dismantled at Ankara did survive. After a period of civil wars, capable new sultans emerged. Within a few decades, the Ottoman Empire would re-emerge as the preeminent power in Europe and the Middle East. Don't forget to visit Growth School.
So maybe that loss for the Ottoman, it ended up kind of being a turning point for them in the future, because they ended up regaining everything. So it was not a turning point, but maybe like a little hiccup. You know, hey, look, we got beat. We didn't have enough people, but they did a great job. Wow. That was a really good video. Man, it was brutal too. I'm just glad it wasn't. I actually found myself rooting for Bayezid and the Ottomans as time went on. So, anyways, we're going to end this here. And I don't know what I'm doing next. But until I do, you have a good day, have a good night.